Oh, baby, things are getting spicy in the world of Zelda. And man, it is about time, given that we are more than 3 years out from Breath of the Wild's release. We got a new Zelda game that's canon to Breath of the Wild, dropping in a month. And I'm here to explain to you why I'm excited for Age of Calamity, and why you should be too. But before we do that, we have some people we need to thank, those people being the Sages of the Lodge, those that donate monthly to keep the Lodge train rolling. So, big and major shoutouts to Alex Pamal, David Fries, Shane Driscoll, Chris Perkowski, Corey Barchat, Scott Castellano, Andrew Parker, Nick Taborski, Charlotte Astry, Kevin McBride, Michael Fay, Richard Arnold, Dan Muller, the family, and Andrew Clay. All of you are wonderful, beautiful people, and thank you for your contributions to the Landy Lodge. Now, without further ado, we need to talk about Age of Calamity. Rather, I need to talk about Age of Calamity, and you're welcome to hear me ramble about it. But before we get into it, I have been recently replaying through Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. If you want to watch me play it, I've been playing it over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TheLandyLodge. There'll be a link in the description if you want to click it and follow me on over there if you're interested in Zelda and watching me play it. In my recent replay, I've discovered why I've been saying it's one of my favorite games of all time the last 3 years. Because, I only played through it once. I did all of the DLC. I found every single shrine. I'm not one of those psychos who went and got every single Korok seed. Though, if you are, I have nothing but respect for you. But playing it again, it's just such a fresh reminder of what a beautiful game that is. And the fact that they're going to turn this into a trilogy, which was funny because that was originally a meme, right? That was a meme that was circulating the cybernet. And now here we go. We're going to get a full-on trilogy of Breath of the Wild. It's all you could ever ask for. I still debate in my head whether it's my favorite Zelda game of all time. It's either Breath of the Wild or Majora's Mask. It's one of those two. But there's a lot to be excited about. So, enough of the ear beating. Let's talk about some story implications, because I think the most exciting thing about Age of Calamity, even though, being in the Zelda world is exciting in and of itself, and playing a Warriors game can be a lot of fun, I actually think the most exciting thing about this, the reason it's getting so much press and coverage and hype, is because it's going to be canon to the story. This is going to be a story-driven game for the most part. I mean, let's be honest. How many of us would be buying it on day one if it didn't have anything to do with Breath of the Wild story? Now, I played the first Hyrule Warriors, and I absolutely loved it, but I was in no rush to get it because I didn't quite feel like I was missing out on anything. But the idea that this game is going to build upon what's become many of our favorite game of all time is another level of exciting, and I couldn't be happier that Nintendo decided to do it. I don't know whose idea this was, if it was the Warriors team or the Breath of the Wild development team, but whoever's idea this was, thank you very much. Now, what is it that we're gonna learn from the prequel? Like, what is there to uncover, right? Because we all know how this story's going to end. We all know where it's going. So, why bring us here? What are we going to see in Age of Calamity that we didn't get to see in Breath of the Wild? And I think, especially based off a recent Treehouse event that Nintendo did, it seems as though we're going to learn a lot, or at least some, about Zelda's mother. And look, somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not very often, if at all, we find out anything about Zelda's mother in any Zelda game. I mean, look, Zelda's father, the King of Hyrule, makes his appearances here and there. In fact, he's essentially your tutorial guide in Breath of the Wild. He's referenced in Ocarina of Time, for example. He's a big part of Wind Waker. So, the king always plays his role. But we never get to see or really hear much about the Queen of Hyrule. I mean, this is just something that's been vacant in the Zelda series for as long as I can remember. But in a recent Treehouse event, they mentioned that we're gonna learn more about Zelda's mother. How much more, I don't know, but I hope it's not just diary entries. I hope it's not just anecdotes. I hope we do get a flashback because I don't know how if any of you remember, but throughout Breath of the Wild, at least with Urbosa, Zelda's mother is mentioned. Like, it's mentioned that Urbosa and Zelda's mother are friends and that she's, in a sense, looking out for Zelda as a favor to her friend, her dear friend. So, from the beginning, Breath of the Wild has been painting Zelda's mother in a certain kind of light. And what I would like to see is that in Age of Calamity, we take that to the next level. We get to meet Zelda's mother, and we can see what kind of relationship Zelda had with her, right? Because it seems like Zelda had a really rough relationship with her dad. Her dad was always pressuring her, letting her know how the gossip mongers refer to her, telling her she needs to focus on her studies, not her studies, but needs to focus on harnessing the divine power. Basically, the father seemed King Rosferamus, I think that's how it's pronounced, but Bosferamus. He was a very, I don't want to call him a tyrannical father, that's not fair, but he seemed to play a very strict father. It'd be interesting to see if there was almost like a good cop, bad cop dynamic between the king and queen of Hyrule, where the king would be a little hard on her, and then the mother would come through and encourage her a little bit. There's a lot of directions they could go with this. But on top of that, I hope we not only get to see her in the game, I hope we see her interact with Zelda, and I hope we get to see her interact with Urbosa. I think it would be cool to see what kind of friendship the two of them had. Now, excuse me. Another thing I'm excited to see is, can we learn more about Link? Like, I think it's been confirmed or soft confirmed that he lived in Hateno Village, and it's very possible the house that we purchase and move into in the game might have been Link's house from 100 years before. I think it's going to be really cool, and maybe we get to learn more about Link's parents, and that's something else in the Zelda series we don't see a lot of. Breath of the Wild, though, mentioned that Link's father was a knight in the army and that essentially he's following in his father's footsteps. That, again, this is not something you often see in a Legend of Zelda game. Usually the parents, quote-unquote, are usually left out of it. But Breath of the Wild did its due diligence to mention them. And it'll be interesting to see if we can meet Link's father or Link's mother, or who knows, maybe he had siblings back in the day. We don't know. But I always found Link's character in Breath of the Wild very interesting. And obviously, a character that doesn't talk, right? How do you find him interesting? But just because our guy doesn't talk very much doesn't mean he hasn't been through a lot. I mean, when you think about it, the Link we play as, I don't want to call him a failure, but this is a Link that has failed his mission. He did not protect Zelda. He didn't even survive the war. He had to go to the Shrine of Resurrection. He wakes up 100 years later. He's got no memories. His best friends are dead. There's a lot you could do with Link here. And, there's that meme out there that shows, like, what happened to Link between the Link from Skyward Sword and the Link from Breath of the Wild? And it's like, yeah, because the Link from Skyward Sword, like, he lived on this happy little island, and then he had to go save Zelda. And obviously, I'm paraphrasing here. There's much more to it. But it's like, he had a happy backstory. Whereas Breath of the Wild Link has a very tragic backstory. And I think that's something we could have a lot of fun with. I think one thing that would be good for Link's character is to almost make it seem like he had this perfect life before Calamity Ganon. That before Calamity Ganon showed up, he had friends, he had family, he had a purpose, that, everything was in place for his life, and then Calamity comes and just destroys everything. I think that'd be really cool. And seeing him, maybe he has some friends in Hateno Village and stuff, and, it would just be really cool to see. Now let's talk about Impa. I accidentally skipped over that in my notes here. I wanted to talk about her first. I'm not going to lie. I'm a big fan of her design in Hyrule Warriors. I think Impa's Hyrule Warriors design is the best design the character has through all iterations. And I maintain that. But I think we have a close second. A close second with this Hyrule Warriors Impa. Not the Hyrule Warriors Impa. I mean, it still is. The Age of Calamity Impa, rather. Because, I like the first Hyrule Warriors one because, Impa is Zelda's guardian. Most of the time, anyway. And I like the idea that Zelda's guardian just has this tough exterior and this real, like, sort of brute energy to her. Like, she will slice your fucking head off if you get too close to Zelda. I like that a lot. And seeing Age of Calamity go the opposite direction and give her sort of a silly look, and we don't know if she'll be a silly character, but let's be honest, she reminds us all of Paya right now. And to see them give her that sort of silly vibe, like a silly cute vibe, I like it because it's not competing with the other design. It's its own design with its own energy and its own aesthetic. And I think it's great. I'm excited. Impa's one of my favorite characters in the Zelda series. I think her role is always excellent. Even in Breath of the Wild, I thought she was really cool. Could probably get a new voice actor, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, yeah, no, it'll be exciting to play as her. But one thing I also want to see is I want to see Link and Zelda have genuine friendships with the champions. I think the Breath of the Wild DLC, this is something that it did so well, is that you got to get more of Link and Zelda's friendships with the champions, with Revali and Daruk and Mipha and Regi. There it is. Forgot that for a second. But, or rather Urbosa. Sorry, Regi takes over. Urbosa. But, yeah, no, it was really cool to see that because that's what we want from these things, right? Like, the things that attach us to characters is watching them all interact with each other. That's why, Final Fantasy VII Remake is such a dream for me because again, at least for me, what gets me attached to characters is watching them all just genuinely interact with each other. It's nice when you can see characters just be themselves without needing their dialogue to move the plot forward. Like, I don't know. It's like seeing the Goron be afraid of it, like of the dog. I think was it was Yunobo. That's his name, Yunobo. Seeing Yunobo be afraid of a dog is hilarious. Maybe it was Daruk. I got a little bit of a foggy memory right now. But anyway, like that's what we want to see. That's what we're all hoping for. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I hope we get to see, like, seeing Link and Mipha interact more. I know is something everybody wants, myself included. So yeah. I mean, most of all, I think what we'll be able to explore and what will really make this interesting is, what did Hyrule look like pre-Calamity? Because, if you've played through Breath of the Wild and you've been a fan of previous games, you see so many nods to previous games. Like, you could bump into Lon Lon Ranch in the original Breath of the Wild. And in a recent, I think it was the gameplay trailer from the Treehouse, you see them on Lon Lon Ranch, one that hasn't been destroyed. And it's just going to be cool to go around Hyrule pre-Calamity and see what all this looked like before the apocalypse showed up. And seeing these places like Lon Lon Ranch, which, while we got nods to them in the Breath of the Wild, we got nods where they were just destroyed. It'll be nice to see them in one piece. And I hope they take that to the next level. I hope there's just more nods. Because there's so much about Breath of the Wild that felt like just a love letter to the Zelda series. And I'm hoping Age of Calamity has those vibes too. I wanted to talk about how we could see more of the king, but I think I talked about that a little bit earlier. Let's talk about the gameplay a little bit. We didn't get to see too many characters. I think we got to see Link gameplay, we got to see Impa gameplay, we got to see Zelda gameplay, which was very interesting, and we got to see Urbosa gameplay. Now, let's start with Urbosa. Her moveset looks absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me in games, I'm always an offense first kind of person. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously defensive stats are important and blocking and guarding and dodging, all that's great. But it's like when I'm thinking about going to battle, I'm always sort of a, brute force first, ask questions later kind of guy. And it looks like this is exactly the kind of way Urbosa's gonna play. She looks like an absolute train. Like, she looks like she could just run through whatever horde of enemies is standing in our way. And I've always had a thing for lightning attacks too. Like, when I play a lot of RPGs, I always kind of cater towards, like, lightning spells. So, me personally, I think playing as Urbosa is going to be just a lot of fun. If you haven't checked out the gameplay from the Treehouse, I suggest you go and check it out. It just looks... I just can't wait. I just can't wait. I want to talk about Zelda, because I know there was a little bit of, not the quote-unquote controversy, when they showcased her character for the new Smash Brothers, and that she had the Link Between Worlds design-esque as opposed to Breath of the Wild. And people were like, hey, we got Breath of the Wild Link, why didn't we get Breath of the Wild Zelda? And the answer, I'm paraphrasing, but was essentially, Breath of the Wild Zelda's not much of a fighter. She's more of a scholar, a researcher, you know, a warrior of the mind, you know, not of the blade, per se. So I thought their take on Zelda's combat style, perfect. Because they kept true to that. I don't know how much any of you have seen, but you can check it out. She essentially uses the Sheikah Slate. And by using, if you could, what it looks like, if you remember all the sort of Sheikah Slate abilities you had in Breath of the Wild, the Magnesis, the ability to stop something in time, the ice on the water, the bombs, it looks like that's literally Zelda's moveset. That she's going to use the Sheikah Slate to use all those different abilities to fight the enemies. Got a horde of enemies coming, grab that metal bin and throw it at them. Plant bombs. You know, it it looks very tactical. I think that's the coolest part, is that it looks very, very tactical, which is very different from how Urbosa looked. Like I said, Urbosa looked like she's going to run train, like she's just going to run through the enemy. Zelda almost looks like you're going to want to have some distance between you and your enemy. You know, you're definitely not going to want to run straight forward into a horde when you're controlling Zelda. And I think that's great, because I think some of the knocks about these Warriors games is everyone's like, it's all hack and slash. And if we're being honest, they're mostly right. However, you can take characters like Zelda and give them these sort of unique movesets that can break up the gameplay. This is something that I think Overwatch does really well, so that it doesn't just feel like an FPS the whole time. You can cycle between different ways to play. And I'm going to get more into this later with some other characters I think we'll get to play as. So I'll get more into this later. But right now, I think Zelda's moveset is going to be for a lot of people who want to sort of expand upon their gameplay experience. We got to see some Link gameplay, and it's about what you would expect. You know, it looks like it's going to play a lot like Link from Breath of the Wild, which is good, because I feel like that's going to warm everybody up to play as Link in Breath of the Wild too. You know, I'm glad they did that. Keep Link as your straight man. You know, let him be your, I don't want to say stereotypical gameplay, but standard warrior gameplay. Let's get in there. Let's hack and slash. Looks like a lot of fun. Let's see. So, something they've been doing that I hope they keep doing is they keep poking at us with these little 45-second trailers. And we've gotten a couple of them. One that was a lot of fun, and another one that raises a ton of questions. Let's talk about the fun one first. Robbie and Pura. Come on. That is awesome. Like, it's so easy to forget about those characters, you know, and that's not a shot at them as characters. It's just the Breath of the Wild world is so large and vast that if you're not like either a champion or directly involved with getting you to the Divine Beast, like say, what's his name, Sidon was, or like say Regi is, Jesus, forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, it's so easy to forget about some of these smaller side characters who meet in the beginning and then they never really come back into play after. But seeing a young Robbie and a young Pura is awesome, because it tells me somebody on this Warriors team, you know, whether it's a developer or a designer, somebody there loves punk rock and they just wanted to be punk rock about it. And I love the angle because they're the techies, right? Like Pura and Robbie are the techies. I'm not saying that like punk rock and techie goes together, but like the electric guitar wahs that you hear when these characters come on screen, I don't know, there's something about it that fits. There's something about it that really fits. Robbie's hairstyle's wild. Like, I love that old Robbie is just a Robbie that lost hair on top. And I love that Pura is just like, looks straight up like 2006 punk rock girl with the freaking the blue strand in her hair. I think it looks awesome. I know some people, and maybe these people suck. Maybe they don't. Let me know in the comments below. But some people think it's a little tacky. Me, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Diversity of character design is important, and Pura stands out from the crowd. Also, like, yeah, she's very over the top, but if you remember, the whole reason she looks like a child in Breath of the Wild was because she was willing to experiment on herself to try and make herself look young again. So it's like, yeah, this one's a bit of a nutcase, and it's okay. I want to see them, because it's implied that they're a big part of the Sheikah tribe. I want to see them sort of lean into that a little more. I want to see more about the Sheikah tribe, like Robbie and Pura, like they're the techies of the Sheikah tribe. That's awesome. Show me more. Who's working sanitation for the Sheikah tribe? Please, show me. I genuinely want to know. I think it's fun, and here's a prediction, and I'm hoping I'm right. I think we're going to get to play as Robbie and Pura. I think we're going to get to play as them, and I think it's going to be wild. Because from what I can see, especially when we got to see Zelda's gameplay, is that they're going to really... I'm hoping anyway, right? This is just my prediction, but I think they're really going to focus on diversity of gameplay. I think they're not going to want this to just be a hack and slash Warriors game. I think by using characters like Robbie and Pura, and anybody who's just not your stereotypical fighter, they're going to make way for a lot of different and interesting gameplay styles. So I'm excited to watch that play out. I think they could be a lot of fun, both as story characters and as playable characters. And then we got this other 45-second trailer. It focused a lot on the Yiga clan, and I think Master Kuga is his name, which the voice actor they got for him is awesome. Completely nails the role. I think he says something like, "I'm going to kill you all to death." I love it. I love it. What can I say? I love the wild and ridiculous shit. Can you tell I'm wearing a Kingdom Hearts hat? Anyway, you know, everything in that trailer seemed to be normal. It didn't look like anything was too out of the ordinary. Until we saw this mysterious villain at the end. And I don't recognize this character. They very obviously weren't in Breath of the Wild. And I don't recognize them from any other Zelda games. I mean, if you have your own theory on it and you've made it this far in the podcast, please either reach out to me or drop it in the comments. Because I have no idea who this is. And I have no idea what they're doing here. But damn, am I excited to learn. Anytime Zelda can introduce a new villain, I'm all about it. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about how this game's going to end. We all know how it ends. The champions die, Link goes to the Shrine of Resurrection, Zelda gets encapsulated in Hyrule Castle, excuse me. And a lot of people think there's going to be just some final battle we get to play in, and then the final cutscene, we watch everybody fall to the what do you call it? Like Thunder Blight Ganon and Water Blight Ganon, all of those. And I don't think so. I think that happens close to the end. But I think the way this game ends is something a lot of Zelda fans have wanted for a long time. I think the way this game ends is with a very, I don't want to call it a very long, but with a relatively substantial Zelda campaign. I think we're going to play as Zelda after the battle. And we're going to need to get to the Lost Woods to put the Master Sword there. And then we're going to have to storm Hyrule Castle alone and fight Ganon. I actually think we're going to get to fight Ganon as Zelda in Age of Calamity. And I have to be honest, if we don't, I'm disappointed. I think this is such a unique opportunity to have a Zelda versus Ganon battle where we play as Zelda. Let's be honest. We're not going to get to do that in a traditional Zelda game. In traditional Zelda games, let's be honest, we are always going to fight Ganon and or Ganondorf as Link. Sometimes you get to fight as both, if you can count it as that, say in Twilight Princess when Zelda's on the back of the horse and she shoots the arrows. At the end of the day, you're not controlling Zelda, but she is part of the fight. I think Age of Calamity presents us with such a unique opportunity to play as Zelda and fight Ganon one-on-one. And if they don't do it, I'll admittedly be really disappointed. Maybe I'm putting my expectations too high. Maybe I'm asking too much of this game. But if I'm being honest, it's like, Nintendo, you made this canon. You made this canon to your new series. Well, Zelda's not a new series, but you know what I mean. To your new story. You made this canon. Don't phone it in. Do not phone it in. Zelda versus Ganon one-on-one. Anything less than that, I'm a little upset. But that's just me, and that's just my opinion. Feel free to let me know what you guys think of that. But, if I'm being honest, I don't need this game to be incredible. I just need it to be fun. You know what I mean? I know Breath of the Wild 2 is coming, and I can't expect Age of Calamity to be as much fun as Breath of the Wild. However, one thing that we are getting to see is there's gonna be an exploration aspect to this game. Like, we've all seen they're using the same assets as Breath of the Wild, but they're literally using the same map. And I mean, obviously they have to, but what I mean is they're probably just using the same sandbox that we were given in Breath of the Wild. There's no real reason to turn it up from that. There's no real reason to not. It's already pre-built for you. So I hope, and this isn't an expectation, this is more of a wish, but I hope that we'll be able to, in some sense, free roam Hyrule. You know? I think that would be cool. Because again, this is pre-Calamity, so there's probably not any of the enemies or the baddies hanging around. So you could almost just free roam like it's a Sunday drive, which I think would be great. Because as much fun as it is exploring in Breath of the Wild, God knows I love doing it, you know, you got to be on your toes. There's enemies lurking around every corner, you know? But we have, again, a unique opportunity where it's like, you could have Sunday drive Hyrule. Just go walk around. I think it would be really cool. But again, what I was going into is like, even though this is going to be technically part of a Breath of the Wild trilogy, I'm not expecting, nor do I need this game to live up to what these other two games are and will be. I just need it to be fun. And have some cool cutscenes. And from the looks of it, it looks like that's exactly what we're getting. Like, it looks like they're not phoning in the cutscenes. It looks like we're not phoning in the gameplay. It looks like this is something that Nintendo took very, very seriously. And I think what's exciting is that if this goes well, we could see the same thing applied in a lot of other games and series that we love. You know? I think it'd be great. I think it would be great. I'm beyond excited for this game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be a ton of fan service. And if there isn't a ton of fan service, I'll be shocked. I mean, let's be honest. Just from the trailers alone, we've had fan service. So honestly, we don't even need to worry about that. But I'm looking forward to it. There's a million reasons to be hyped not just from what we've seen, but from what we can feasibly expect. And what we can feasibly expect is that Nintendo's not phoning this in, and that they're taking this very, very seriously. And they know how big of a game Breath of the Wild is. They know what an impact it had. They're not just going to willy-nilly attach a Warriors game to it because money. Don't get me wrong, Nintendo's a corporation. Because money is the reason they do a lot of things. But I think they're going through this with a fine-tooth comb. And I think this game is going to be handled with a lot of love and attention. I think it's going to be great. But let me know what you think. I don't want to, drag this on for too long. I think I've said all I need to say. I'm more than excited for the game. I'm super hyped. If you're a Zelda fan, you should be hyped too. But if you made it this far in, thank you very much for watching. Big shout out to the Sages of the Lodge. And all of you who come around and for whatever reason want to keep hearing my voice. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. But anyway, that's going to do it for us. Look forward to Age of Calamity. Going to be a lot of fun. We got more podcasts coming at you in the next coming weeks. Got some really cool guests lined up. Really looking forward to it. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one.